I'm Tad Flaky,
I'm Lilibet Flaky.
and this is Pointless Global News. On today's show, Uranus emits more heat than previously thought.
Then, a Florida man starts a fire baking cookies on his George Foreman Grill.
Next, a Florida woman refuses to pay for her meal and then punches a cop in the nuts.
Finally, I'll tell you the revolting facts about nose picking.
Now the details. Uranus emits more energy than it gets from the sun, two new studies report, a discovery that contradicts findings from the venerable Voyager spacecraft. When Voyager 2 sped past Uranus way back on January 24th, 1986, the spacecraft detected no significant excess of heat from the planet, making it seemingly unique among the sun's giant worlds. However, new observations from space and ground-based telescopes reveal that Uranus does in fact radiate more energy than sunlight provides. Uranus is not as odd as we thought it was, says planetary scientist Patrick Irwin of the University of Oxford in England, a co-author of one of the studies. Both teams say that Uranus, which takes 84 years to orbit the sun, reflects a bit more sunlight into space than Voyager had found. This means that the sun heats the planet less than previously thought, suggesting that Uranus must generate some heat to explain its temperature. The upshot: Uranus does indeed have internal heat, says Liming Lee, a planetary scientist at the University of Houston and co-author on another study. This heat is presumably left over from the planet's birth. Lee's team estimates that Uranus emits 12.5% more energy than it receives from the sun. Irwin's team pegs the excess at 15%, consistent with the other team's result. No one knows why Uranus is so subdued, but the planet has another oddity. It rotates on its side, with an axial tilt of about 98 degrees compared to 3 degrees for Jupiter, 27 degrees for Saturn, and 28 degrees for Neptune. Planetary scientists have long suspected that the giant object of some kind knocked Uranus over. If so, the impact may have dredged up hot material from its interior, Irwin says, causing Uranus to lose much of its heat during its youth. And now here's Lilibet with a related story involving excessive heat.
But before that, I have to tell a really bad old joke about Uranus.
I can't wait.
What do the Starship Enterprise and toilet paper have in common?
I gave up.
They both circle Uranus, picking up Klingons.
Yuck.
Yeah. Okay.
She'll be here all week, by the way. Be sure to try the veal. Yikes.
He was drunk, stoned, and naked, cops say. Then out came the George Foreman Grill. Two officers from Niceville, Florida Police Department went to assist firefighters at a home in Niceville. When they arrived, the officers saw white smoke coming from the house and could smell something burning. A man, later identified as James Gregory Cunningham, answered the door, said he was sorry, and then closed it. The individual was naked and in a smoke-filled house with items on fire inside, such as towels. James showed no sign of understanding the danger he was in. He came back to the door. For his safety, the officers detained Cunningham and brought him some pants. Once safely out of the house, Cunningham admitted that he had consumed 2 liters of vodka and smoked marijuana. Firefighters also went inside with oxygen masks to put the fire out. They determined that Cunningham was baking cookies on his George Foreman grill and left them unattended. Both the cookies and the grill subsequently caught fire. The man then put towels on the grill to put the fire out unsuccessfully. EMS arrived on scene, but the 53-year-old refused medical treatment despite obvious burns on his hands. The firefighters on scene advised if James had stayed in the house, he could have been seriously injured and possibly died. Good thing he didn't decide to cook some hot dogs on that grill. Wink, wink.
I don't think those things were designed to cook cookies, and this is a perfect example of what I'm thinking. Why would you bake cookies on a George Foreman grill? Who knows? Anyway, sticking with Florida as a location for bizarre activity, a 32-year-old Florida woman was arrested for allegedly refusing to pay her tab at a steakhouse in downtown Ocala, Florida, and punching a police officer in the nuts after she was escorted outside the restaurant. On Tuesday, May 6th, several Ocala Police Department officers responded to Mark's Prime Steakhouse in reference to a woman identified as Rachel King who was refusing to pay her tab. When one of the officers entered the restaurant, King was observed sitting at the bar, and the report stated that she appeared to be intoxicated. A manager informed the officer that King was refusing to pay her tab, which totaled $99.53. The officer assisted with escorting King out of the steakhouse and to the patio area, where she sat down in a chair. According to the report, a bystander offered to help King by getting the cash she needed to pay for her tab, though she would first need to send the money to the bystander via Venmo. The report stated that King gave the officer permission to assist with sending the money to the bystander. While the officer was attempting to send the money while using King's cell phone, King allegedly became agitated and stated that the officer should just leave her alone. King then snatched her phone from the officer before allegedly raising her right fist as far back as she could, and then she proceeded to punch the officer in the testicles, which caused the officer to feel extreme pain. Moments later, King was placed under arrest, and she was booked into Marion County Jail. 2 days later, she was released from the facility after posting a $17,500 bond. King is being charged with battery on a law enforcement officer and swindling, defrauding an innkeeper of less than $300.
And finally, picking your nose is a dirty habit, but studies suggest most people do it often. And who knows if the others are lying? But there is more to scratching your snot than a gross pastime. The habit has health impacts you might not expect, along with a bizarre, if colorful, history. This list delves its finger up the nostril of nose picking and pulls out some of the most interesting, bizarre treats inside. For example, in Forest of Madagascar dwells a small primate that loves munching on its snot. Eyes are equipped with 8-centimeter middle fingers that almost fill their nasal cavities. The nocturnal creatures shove their spindly digits up their noses to dig around for boogers. Then they pull their fingers out and lick off the mucus. Remarkably, scientists only picked up on the habit in eyes in 2022. Further studies with a CT scan revealed that the lemurs can reach through their noses to nearly the back of their throats. Eyes join an exclusive club of primates caught picking their noses, which includes gorillas, macaques, and chimpanzees. Another example, picking crust off the inside of your nose can lead to serious damage. Just ask the young woman who presented to doctors in 1975 with a ripped septum. The woman was just 19 when she went to London Hospital complaining of a large hole in her nose. The tear stretched back 7 to 8 centimeters from her nostrils. The patient opened up a hole in her septum after 2 years of picking her nose. The septum is a wall of cartilage between the nose's two chambers. The teenager told hospital staff she could fit her whole little finger up the left side of her nose. Despite the tear and nasal discharge, doctors found no evidence of infection. There are those that are aroused by nose picking. People get turned on by all sorts of bizarre things, and noses are no exception. Most people are fond of the more typical sexual body parts like genitals, buttocks, and breast, but others find themselves drawn in by the snout. Nasophilia is a type of fetish that focuses on the nose. Individuals may have become excited by the sight and touch of a nose or by erotic stroking and sucking. Some say they enjoy placing their nose into their partner's closed eyes. And medical experts say there are some cases where fetishes are turned on by picking noses. Nasophiles are often selective about which noses they find attractive, favoring certain sizes, shapes, and types of nostrils. Others enjoy role play where the nose is transformed, like an erotic fantasy based around Pinocchio. Well, let me tell you, having taught kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth graders, they also like to pick their nose. I've seen kindergartners get 2 and try and get 3 fingers in a nostril. I am constantly telling them, there's no prizes or gold up there. Get your fingers out of your nose.
And circling back to that last thing you said about getting turned on by some erotic fantasy involving Pinocchio,
Yep.
are they imagining Pinocchio's nose as some kind of a dildo?
I don't know, and I don't want to know.
And you got to do your Uranus joke earlier. So
I
now,
did.
So now I'm going to torture the audience with my singing here
Go
with a
for it.
little ditty I
Oh,
learned.
no,
one of
not
the-
that.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's doing it, picking their nose and chewing it all. Kids think it's candy, but it's not. It's not. With a booger on top.
Yay.
I'll be here all week. I'll be the opening act for the comic stylings of Little Bit Flaky. And that's going to be a wrap for another Pointless Global News. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tad Flaky.
I'm Lilibet Flaky.
Stay pointless, my friend.